Yeah, perfect. All right. So, hi, everyone. Welcome, and thanks so much for joining us this evening. It's wonderful to see so many of you all here eager to discover what college major or career path would be suitable for you. We know that it can be extremely overwhelming, especially when there are so many different options and uncertainties. So hopefully by the end of this webinar, you'll have a lot more clarity on the steps to get you to where you want to be. Do keep in mind if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box. We'll also have a live Q&A session at the end to address as many of your questions as we can. All right, so before we start, I'd love to introduce Devi and Carol, who will be speaking at this webinar tonight. So Carol, yeah, I'll let you provide a brief introduction and then we can get started.
So, hi everyone, thanks for coming. I'm Carol Lewis, and I am part of Ascend now. I'm also a parent, so for the parents on the call, I'm there in the trenches with you, trying to navigate to selecting, helping children to select colleges and majors, or as courses as they're called in the UK where I live. I want to say that we are clearly not trying to promote a single path as to how to work towards your goals. And we'll get more into that later. But anyhow, I'm excited to be here and I'm excited to do this with Devi. She's fantastic and she'll introduce herself now.
Thanks so much, Carol. And I'm equally excited to do this with you. I think it's amazing that, you being a parent as well as a college counselor, as well as an advisor, having all these different degrees from MBA to sort of college counseling gives you such a unique perspective as well. So hello, everyone. For those that I haven't met, my name is Devi. I founded Ascend now close to 7.5 years ago with really one simple intention to encourage students to figure out who they are. I'm a firm believer that the best knowledge you can have is self-knowledge. And maybe to share a little bit about my story and why, Ascend Now came into existence. I grew up in Antwerp in Belgium, and when I turned 18, all I wanted to do was study abroad. In particular, go to Georgetown, which was my dream school. And so when I got in, I had to take a massive student loan, student debt, as we couldn't afford it. And so while I was at Georgetown, I took every job I could, from being a barista to a teaching assistant. And when I was a teaching assistant to my two majors, that's when I fell in love with learning, because I realized that although I was teaching other students, I was learning so much more in return. So much so that in my senior year of university, this was 10 years ago, I started a company for college students to tutor other college students. And it was so cool to see how peer-to-peer learning was so powerful for students in the undergraduate age group. So then I graduated, I joined Goldman Sachs in New York City. I worked there for 3 years in the M&A group, the mergers acquisitions group. And after those 3 years, I said, I need to repay my loan, which I did, and then I need to start something in education. So I started Ascend Now, which is headquartered in Singapore. We work now with over 11,000 students globally. Many are in London from a lot of the international schools. Many are in Singapore, Southeast Asia. And we do three things essentially. One is academic support. We pair students with our own teachers that are examiners. So typically A-level, IB, IGCSE examiners that can support them in the exam technique, but also enjoy the subject. The second thing we do, which is really popular, are beyond academic courses. These are things like passion projects, entrepreneurship projects. Kids are publishing books, doing TED Talks. More on that a bit later in terms of passion projects. And the third is college support. I personally work very closely with a lot of schools and universities. I sit on my alma mater board, the Georgetown University board, and I'm just generally very passionate about education. So I'm very excited to speak on a topic that I still think we all have a lot to learn on, frankly, which is figuring out who we are and what our strengths are, especially for our students and our kids. So yeah, Carol, over to you.
Just to quickly go through the agenda, Millie really spoke to the goals of the call, but we want to talk to you a little bit about how to help you spot what your interests are, uncover what makes you tick, where your flow is, thinking more about how to choose your major. And last, we want to talk about parent-child communication, or I should say parent-student communication, since we don't have any children on the call. And last, we hope to leave you with some useful tools. We're going to do one quick activity just to start off. It's for the parents on the call. So students, you can just kick back and watch adults do their thing. What we'd like you to do is to get your head in the game of this presentation. We'd like you to think back to where you were when you were at the age of your student, your child, the one who for which you came to this call. So what were you thinking about? What university were you thinking about? Were you even thinking about universities? Do you have any idea of what career you might want to do? Did you know how the university application process worked? How much time are you even thinking about the future? So some examples maybe you would come up with is, oh, I maybe wanted to be a doctor, but I had no idea what that meant, or I don't know. I'll give you an example. Just give you a minute, and then I'll share my story. Okay, so when I was my daughter's age, when I was 15, I wanted to be a nurse. And the reason why I wanted to be a nurse is because my sister was a nurse and I thought my sister was cool. And yeah, she was just cool. My best friend wanted to be an architect, and we wanted to go to school in the same place. So my goal for university was simply to find a university that had an architecture and a nursing program. So in those days, we looked through books, and we literally went to the Career Center and went through the books and found a school in California where we lived that had both the programs. We never looked at the rankings. We could have cared less. We just wanted to be at the same school. So fast forward, she's not an architect. I'm not a nurse. She is a counselor. I was in banking. I also worked in IT network development. So certainly I didn't actually do what I thought I was going to do when I was that age. So is there anyone on the call that might be willing to share what they were thinking of doing at this age? And Millie, I'm not sure how they should do that. Should they chat or raise their hand or?
I think if they raise their hand, or they can put in the chat that they'd like to share, and I can allow them to talk too.
And it's just a quick share. I did a long share. You could just say I wanted to be a blah blah. Okay, so Celine says hello. She didn't think about what she was going to be doing. Okay.
I think it's so interesting, Carol, that you said that you wanted to actually like be something because of your sister, which is so interesting because one of my biggest decisions of my life, which was going to Georgetown, was really simply founded upon because my brother wanted it. Like I didn't have a logic, but someone in my
Mhm.
circle of influence wanted
Mhm.
it. So it's so
Yeah.
interesting. I see a
Mhm.
couple of like answers here from Kay, fashion designer. Kay, are
Mhm.
you a fashion designer today? Would love to know. Mel Joss, same as you. I wanted to be with my friend and cousin.
Because it's motorbikes.
Oh, that's cool.
Great. Okay, so I guess it's fairly evident that where we're getting at in this talk is that the career path um, is usually not linear. It usually isn't straightforward. It goes back and forth and here and there and all around. And for the students on this call, we really want you to get clear on that. It's absolutely a myth to think that you would know at this age what you want to do when you're 50, or even that there's one single passion in your life that will drive you it just doesn't work that way. And what we want to do this talk is go through different ways that you can explore yourself and get yourself going in the right direction. But really, it's not about worrying, oh, I should have it all figured out. Frankly, even your parents don't have it figured out. So if that's any indication. But yet, there is certainly good ways that you can get yourself where you want to go and help develop a life that's quite aligned with what makes you happy and brings you joy. So Debbie's going to talk to us right now about a few students that we've worked with at Ascend Now, or I should say Debbie's worked with, to talk about their journey because it really illustrates what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So Annika was one of our earlier students. She started working with us when she was close to 16. She was, I think, 15 and a half. And I remember meeting her and she came to me and she said that, and I met her in Singapore and she came to me and she said, Davy, I want to do something in entrepreneurship. I know I want to be my own boss. And you could really feel the entrepreneurship energy in her. And me being an entrepreneur, I never thought I was going to be an entrepreneur. Similar to, I think there was someone who said to Kay, who said she wanted to be a fashion designer, is now in finance. I had the same thing. Like I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. So anyway, so I met her and she said entrepreneurship is for me. So I said, okay, why don't we do something in entrepreneurship as one of your projects? So she did something really interesting. She started a company called Food Flip. It's a nonprofit where she goes around different restaurants in Indonesia and collects the food wastage and recycles it and then donates it to underprivileged communities. So in about 2.5 years, she donated $35,000 of food and 123,000 pieces of bread. And so her impact was monumental in terms of her passion project. So anyway, when it come time to apply to university, she applied to, your Ivy Leagues. She was a straight A student, etc. And she got accepted into this very, very awful list of universities. No, amazing universities. And she ended up going to Northwestern University on a scholarship, which is where she is now in her 4th year. She's a senior. And so it's super interesting because I reconnected with her and I asked her, Annika, what major did you end up choosing in Northwestern? And she said, I ended up choosing economics, which is not too far away from entrepreneurship, give or take. And so I said, oh, okay. So what do you think you're going to do from a career standpoint? And she said, oh, Miss Davy, I actually got an internship at the New Yorker this past summer and they gave me a full-time offer. She's going to be a writer. And I said, oh, how did that come about? And she said, I never had exposure to writing in a free flow way in high school. And in Northwestern, I did a couple of journalism courses, and it completely changed my trajectory of what I want to do. And so this is a really good example of a student who just completely, not, I wouldn't say changed her interests, she just added more interest into her existing list of interests and passions. Tons of examples that I can share about this, but I think a few of them that are more notable and maybe relatable to some of the students here are 3 others. This is another student of ours, Karis. Karis is really a lovely girl, very lovely heart, really wants to do good for the community. She's academically average, B students, B's, C's, some A's. But her big passion project was starting Karis Cares. So she said, I have a lot of empathy for kids with Down syndrome. I want to start a nonprofit to give kids with Down syndrome employment opportunities. So she came to Ascend Now. We structured the whole project with her, and she won a very prestigious prize from Yale, which is where she is now, called the Thorn Prize, which is for students that have demonstrated significant impact to their community. Again, very interesting with Karis, she continues to impact this community. It doesn't stop at university once she gets into university. And so I see a lot of parents and kids, and we work with a lot of kids from like TASIS and Eton, and the parents come to me like, I need something good for my child's resume. Yes, that is true, but you need something for your child's inner core, like for them to figure out who they are, right? So yeah, the passion project helps with all these other things in their journey, but it actually helps them with their self-confidence. Case in point, Shreya, started in, I think, South Bank in ninth grade. She changed a lot of schools due to her dad's work. So she started in South Bank, then she moved to Indonesia. She did a couple years there. Then she moved to Singapore. So I met her when she was in Singapore. And she struggled a lot with anxiety, with a lot of depression, and a lot of other learning difficulties on the spectrum. And for her academics, was really, really challenging. She found the IB program not a good fit for her, and she found that the exam technique was almost never taught. So she used her journey, so to speak, to write a book called Battle Scars, which is a memoir and a series of poems about her journey with anxiety. Today, this book is on Amazon. It's one of the best sellers. And she's studying at NYU at Tisch, doing an acting major. So again, something just because you're interested in something or you're doing your passion project in something does not mean your major necessarily needs to align. I connected with Shreya, I think 3 or 4 months ago, and she was asking me, Devi, do you think I should do a double major and do something with finance and acting? And I told her, whatever you're interested in, go for it. The beauty of the US system, not that I'm biased, I think the UK has amazing schools as well. But the beauty of the US is that you do have that flexibility. Last quick little anecdote, and I could talk about SNF students for days, so I'll keep it short. William, interesting guy. He pretty much an all-rounder, good at sports, good at school, good at extracurriculars, but never had the deep interest in one thing. And it took us a long time to get there, honestly. We tried a lot of things, and he just wasn't really interested in it. So finally, we decided to do an entrepreneurship program, which is a very popular program here at Ascend now. Not entrepreneurship in the sense that you start a business and make a ton of money. That's one outcome, but more so you solve a problem, you solve an existing problem. And while he did this course, he really empathized with the financial literacy module. He really liked that particular module. So he decided to create his own version of financial literacy courses, live courses to teach students in different villages where he lives. And he's now a sophomore at Boston College. And again, he continues teaching those kids I think it's every month on Sundays. He takes it religiously, almost as if going to church, and he continues those projects. And when I asked him, like, what did that project do for you? He just said it made me feel better about myself. I always felt crummy about myself. I always felt like I was so hard on myself. I didn't love myself. And this just makes me feel a little better about myself and my journey. He has no idea what career path he wants to go into. He hasn't applied for internships. This next summer, he's going to be using by taking this project further. But just goes to show you don't need to have it all figured out. So maybe to quote Stephen Antonoff, he says it quite aptly, your major doesn't lock you into a single career. Instead, it's a launching point, one of many opportunities to develop skills, knowledge, and connections.
Thanks, Devi. Well, that being said, we still need to choose a major course at some time. And so how do we get to the point that we can actually tick a box at the point of applying to school? So we've kind of debunked the myth that that there's a perfect major, but I can also say that not all careers require a specific major. So, for example, an English major could work in business, or an engineer could become an entrepreneur. So what matters while you're in school is really the skills you're building. It doesn't specifically always align, and we've said that quite a bit. And just one more thing on that note, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York did a study and found that only 27% of college graduates work in the fields related to their major. Now, there's a few exceptions, as we know. There's law, there's medicine, there's engineering. Those require specific academic pathways, and you must do those academic pathways to get there. So we can't discount that, and that's the minority. It's also true that someone could study any of those majors or courses, law, and not become a lawyer. So the skills that you're learning in college are really broadly applicable. If you look at something like problem solving is something that you will really encounter in a STEM major, philosophy and economics. For creativity, you can do something in humanities or in the arts. Research and analysis, history, and science. They're entirely different majors, but you can then become very good at doing research and analysis. And that's a totally transferable skill for quite a few jobs. Communication, English, communication sociology, is what you're taking away from school is really what is going to help drive you to the job market. You're going to be able to show, sort of like with the passion project, you're going to be able to show that you've done some things that are unique to you, and it gives you a unique offering in a university, I mean, in a job. So one of the key things to do is study something that you're passionate about. When you study something that you're passionate about, you're more engaged and you're more likely to be successful. Here's some interesting stats. College graduates are half as likely to be unemployed as their peers whose highest degree have a high school diploma. The 87% of bachelor degree holders report financial well-being, which is 20% higher than those with less education. Median lifetime earnings are 1.2 million higher for bachelor degree earners. Of course, that's can vary widely. It could be much higher than that. So there's some real financial benefits to going to college and to getting a degree. It also allows you to further explore yourself and your passions.
So we did a project with the World Economic Forum about 8 months ago, where we tried to understand what the future skills that will make kids life ready are. And it was quite interesting. We essentially asked them to showcase what the fastest growing job postings on LinkedIn are. If you guys don't use LinkedIn, please do. Please add Carol and I. We're very big users of LinkedIn. But that's a side note. In this study, we found out that most of the fastest growing job postings include talent acquisition associates, customer success analysts, AI data scientists, again, no surprise here, growth marketing managers, talent acquisition partner, and workplace coordinator. And you'll notice that 5 out of 6 of these have to do with soft skills, human skills. Talent acquisition and talent acquisition partner and associate have to do with hiring, sourcing talent. And that really begs the question, if we're having so many difficulties sourcing talent, are we not teaching the right skills for the generations to come? Is that the gap? Is it a gap in hard skills and soft skills, or just soft skills? So this was quite interesting for us to see, because we thought that 6 jobs would be AI, whereas actually 5 are, you could argue, not necessarily AI. So I think Abraham Lincoln says this really well, but the best way to predict your future is to create it. This couldn't be more applicable than today, when we don't really know what the next industries of the future are. When I was in university, artificial intelligence did not even exist. Today, it's one of the biggest job markets.
We talked quite a bit about following what your interests are, but how do you actually know what your interests are? We all have lots of muddled ideas in our head. So we would like to encourage you to start with these questions. First, thinking, and this is really for the students on the call, but of course, for all of us adults on the call, we're all always working to refine ourselves. So it kind of applies to all of us. So we'd implore you to take a look at these 3 questions. First of all, what am I good at? Let's just have a frank conversation. What am I good at? Because usually what you're good at is a path in which you can find a lot of doors open. What excites you? And these don't always go together. Something might excite you, but might not be good at. You might be good at something, but it doesn't excite you. And really play with those. I might be excellent at math, but I don't like it. Probably not a good job path for you. What problems do I want to solve in my life? So talk talk to people, talk to your teachers, your parents, your mentors. You can even ask people, what do you think I'm good at? Sometimes other people can mirror back to you ideas about yourself that you actually have no idea. There's these wonderful tools now, and I'll go through a few of them, where you can look at what your personality type is, what your strengths are, where your interests lie, and oftentimes they'll spit out different job opportunities. Sometimes you'll look at them and oh, that one's not right, that one's not right, that one's pretty good. And then you'll do another test and you start seeing patterns where these jobs start popping up in all the different assessments, and it helps you understand what might be a good fit for you. You can journal and think about what are the activities that actually make me lose track of time. So here's some free resources that we know of that we think are pretty great. And after this call, we're going to send you more information that you can do at home. So UCAS, which is the equivalent of the Common App in the US, really is not only a tool for applying to school, but it has really interesting place to search for undergraduate programs based on interest, and just general interest, mining your interest in things. The US has the College Big Future, which has career help there. College Express is a really cool tool. They have pre-made lists, a hand-picked list on different interest areas. So if you're trying to figure out what you might want to study, they'll give you a sort of small list that's really bite-sized and easy to do research on. Then we'd encourage you to then go ahead and go to the websites, take a look, uncover what you might find. Kick the can around, see if there's more to it. It's a website I love. It's called Road Trip Nation. They are a group of young people who they create documentaries, and they drive around this big green van, and they go to different they basically interview people who do different kinds of things. So they'll interview an engineer, they'll interview a nurse, or they'll interview a designer, and you can really see what it's like in their world. Gives you a very good sense of what people do on the job, and it's actually fun to watch. They have career exploration tools as well. They have something called Roadmap and Career Finder, which are very well done. There is online courses. There's Coursera is spectacular, and many of their courses are free. They do introductory courses into different subject areas. So, for example, if you're interested in psychology, they have an intro to psychology class that you can actually take to see what it's like to study psychology. So, I think I like psychology, but let's actually test out taking a class in it, and maybe you find out that's not your cup of tea, or perhaps this clarifies things. See, we're talking about getting your hands wet and trying different hats on. They have Computer Science 101. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. edX offers tools, courses from universities. So you can go on, this is free. You can take a Harvard class that are a university class. You can take a class from MIT and in a million different, not a million, but several different areas. And you can test the waters and learn more about the areas that you might be interested in.
So in addition to that, everyone on this webinar is also entitled to our free behavioral assessment. This is a 15 to 20 minute survey and quiz where essentially you will get a skills profile. This is for adults as well as kids. This has been used by quite a lot of very inspiring education institutions like UCLA, Northwestern University, and a lot of international schools as well, both in Europe, Southeast Asia, as well as the US. But essentially, anyone who's interested in getting to know what their skills are today and what their weaker skills are and their stronger skills can just email Carol, and you guys can get that data for yourself. It's a really cool analysis. I did it myself, and I was blown away by so many skills that I thought I actually possessed as strong, ended up being weaker than a 15-year-old. So it just goes to show, skills it's such a learning over time, and you never know a skill incomplete, right? It's not an absolute learning. You relearn, you reapply, you unlearn. So it's a really cool assessment. So if you're interested, if you're a student you're interested, or a parent you're interested, just reach out to Carol and we will set that up for you.
So, lastly, just a quick discussion and some tips from us on effective parent-student communication with respect to this topic. So, as a parent, I'm a parent. We have to always remember that the world that our child is navigating is entirely different from the world that we grew up in. So we humbly guide them. We know some things, we've learned a few things that we can help them with, but we certainly don't know it all. And so I think it's a partnership. I think it's wonderful to ask open-ended questions. What excites them? Our job is to present them with opportunities, and really guide rather than control. One example we have here in the notes is, what excites you about this field rather than why don't you study this, which we've all heard ourselves say sometimes. We want to try to get them thinking that ultimately it's their life, not ours. And as much as we think we know our kids, there's a lot more going on in their head than we know. I mean, you think about what your parent thinks of you, and maybe that's not the whole picture. So we just always should remember this when we're talking to our own kids. An important pitfall to avoid is assuming that traditional careers are safe. And new industries are popping up all the time, and traditional careers are going away. And we want kids that are flexible, resilient, they've got their eye on the ball, looking towards the future, willing to learn new skills, willing to adapt. There's not a concrete solution to their future, just like there wasn't to ours. And we're just cheering them along the way.
And it's funny, like I see a lot of the students that we work with on the call tonight, and a lot of the parents that I know very well. And like a lot of the times, the parents call me and say, "Can you tell this to my child?" or "Can you share this to my child?" And I think as a parent, it's okay to acknowledge that sometimes you won't get through to your child, and that's normal. I mean, if you're a parent, when you were 14, did you always listen to your parents? I certainly did not. And so I looked for that mentor and I couldn't find it, honestly, until I was like 20. I couldn't find a mentor. So I think it's okay to have that mentorship, that's coming, that's an external source.
Mhm. Now, just a couple tips for the students. Um, One thing that helps a lot is just to communicate with your parents. Your parents want the best for you, and they have worries if they don't hear anything. And unfortunately, when there's no communication, they might think, "Oh gosh, they're not thinking about their homework, or they're not thinking about planning to do their university application." And that can drive this, "Oh my God, are you not working on this?" And if you are, let them know. And then the pressure's off for you. We want to avoid your parents having any assumptions. And I'd suggest asking for help if if you feel like it. If not, find somebody, find an adult, a mentor, a teacher, a friend, an aunt, somebody who you can chat with about your next steps. I had this really lovely mentor that was my dad's cousin. She was old, and I just thought she was so cool. She went to the Himalayas when she was 70, and she got me really interested in traveling. And she had a love of learning, and that made a big impact on me. And I'm sure all of us can find those people if we look for them. Yeah. I think we should probably end now because we've gone to our time limit. So I'd like to end by saying that not all those who wander are lost. That's a quote from J.R. Tolkien. It's just a reminder that exploration leads us on this unexpected wild journeys. I mean, this really is a journey in life for all of us, for our kids who are starting the journey, and us who are early, mid, and past mid. And we all want to approach it that way, and approach the serendipitous nature of it as well. mean, Debbie and I have a funny story how we met, right?
So Carol and I met about 2.5 years ago, and I was meant to meet Carol's friend for coffee. And I guess Carol and that friend were having coffee at the same time. And so Carol's friend said, "Hey, Carol, why don't you just join this meeting?" And so we ended up talking, I think all three of us for 2, 3 hours. But I think it just goes to show that there is so much beauty in the journey too. As I get older, I recognize that a lot more. And I also recognize that, you can learn from any age, right? So even though I might be whatever, 31, I'm learning from my students that are 16 and 14 and 10 every single day, as I am learning from people that are way older or the same age. And just being conscientious that their learning comes from any single source. I think it's really important. I don't know if we're having enough cross-generational dialogue, and the series today is really to encourage that. So hope you guys enjoyed, and please do reach out to Carol or myself. We'll put our emails here for the behavioral assessment so you can really figure out and skillify your life and your path. We'll
Mhm.
open it up to any questions. Any questions? Any comments? Stop sharing. Hope this was helpful for you guys.
Mhm. We're going to be emailing you, or I don't know how we're going to send you, I think by email, more resources that you can use yourself on this journey. Thanks very much for your time. It was really lovely to chat.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Hope to see you next time. Thank you, Celine. Thank you, Kay.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you, Mel. We'll be sending some of those resources that Carol mentioned as well in a follow-up email.
Okay, have a nice evening, everyone.
Take care. Good night. Bye. Thank you, team. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Debbie.